A very warm welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. You're most definitely watching a 3T TV, which is Thika's #1 online news channel, where we are telling the Thika story as it is. My name is Juliet Modoni, and today we are talking about leadership. We are going to have a discussion with a gentleman who is from this wonderful town that is Thika. He wears very many hats. He was lately distinguished as one of the eminent persons from Kiambu County, and he is from Thika. He was also awarded by the President of the Republic of Kenya an Elder of the Burning Spear. He's going to explain to us what exactly that means. And he was also installed by the Kikuyu Council of Elders with the title of Jabaya Ruriri. We have quite a lot in store. He is going to tell us what he has done for this town. I hope that by the end of this segment, you will have learned a thing or two about this wonderful town. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, we will give you a good reason enough to. So let us dive right into it. How are you doing?
Thank you, Juliet. I'm doing very well.
Thank you for making time to have this conversation with us.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure, and I think you are very welcome to have a discussion with me.
Yes.
Yes.
You have quite a number of titles.
Yes.
To your name.
Yes.
I'd like us to start with an introduction. I know very many people know you.
Yes.
But there's somebody who doesn't quite know you. Let's start with an introduction.
As to my name is Kinuthia Wamwangi. That's it.
Kinuthia Wamwangi.
Yes.
You wear very many hats.
Yes.
Yes, nationally and
Yes.
even around here.
Yes, I know you may want to know the origin of those hats. Let's start with more or less with my working career and my relationship with this town of Thika, or the municipality of Thika. I was headhunted from the Kenya School of Law as the first legal officer of Thika Municipal Council, and I say first, in 1975. I had interacted when I was in School of Law with the Ministry of Local Government, and in a way they had identified me as having the right characteristics and potential to provide the service of a legal officer in the municipality. And that's a coincidence because the municipality also had requested the Ministry of Local Government to approve the position of a legal officer come advocate of the municipality. So they just asked the council to interview me. If I met the threshold, the position will be created and they will be able to employ me. At that time, since I was just in the School of Law and we were waiting for qualifications like being called to the bar, we had passed the law exams, but we were waiting to be called to the bar. So I was given the title of legal officer, and later I became the municipal advocate when I was called to the bar. I don't know whether people understand what being called to the bar means. It is being admitted by the Chief Justice, the Honorable Chief Justice, into the role of advocates in Kenya.
Awesome.
So that's what I started with, and I was in that job in Thika for only 2 years, after which I found a vacancy in Mombasa. I went and did an interview, and they employed me as an assistant town clerk. Again, I was in that position for only 2 years. Because when a position of town clerk fell vacant within that period, the councillors themselves came to Mombasa. They sent a delegation of the deputy mayor and another councillor to come and request me to come for an interview for town clerk, which I did. And from 1979 to 1988, I became a town clerk of Thika and was town clerk of Thika. And that leaves me as the longest serving town clerk in Thika.
Wow.
There is no other prior to me or after me who served that kind of period. The second longest serving town clerk was called Gaine. He was here for 6 years. So it is a position I cherish. And even when I left and was reposted to Nyeri as a town clerk, I only kept that position for 1 year, and I decided to change my career. That's when I went to National Social Security Fund to become their first. That was my first transition activity, because NSSF was being delinked from the Ministry of Labour to an independent corporation of government. And therefore I can say I was the first personnel and administration manager in charge of transformation, transforming it from a department of Ministry of Labour to a fully fledged corporation. And really, that's what I call my first transitional activities.
Yeah.
Because I managed to do it. By the time I left the National Social Security Fund, after 2 years, it was already a second-class corporation. Sometimes you classify the corporations from first class to fifth. Therefore, only the central bank was senior than it in the hierarchy of seniority. By the time I left, maybe others entered that class later. But I was satisfied with that job. Then I also left after 2 years, and I came to Canard Metal Box, where I was the HR manager for a period of 5 years. Yes, before I retired to being their consultant. They changed my job. I resigned from being a human resource manager to a consultant, whereby I took up some responsibilities like sorting. Sorting was a department where they had retired 50 people. It was a department, they had 50 people, and in one of their reorganization and restructuring, we had retired 50 people, so it was a department without anybody. So they took that department and gave it to me. So all the cans that were being isolated to be sorted were being brought to me. I was given a very big warehouse, and I had about 80 people. I increased because the work was a lot, and I became now and selling like their scrap, all their scrap metal, their scrap wood, their everything. I'm the one who used to dispose. Then I'll be given commissions. There's a way they were able to remunerate me for doing the sorting work. That's the job I did for just about 8 years. Before then I left to Britain to study as an old person. I went to Britain at the age of 49 to study Masters in Human Resource Management. So you can see I had already worked in NSSF. I had worked in Canard Metal Box for 8 years as doing HR work. And I felt that I needed to be professional in that area because my training is as an advocate. So that's why I went. While I was still under the consultancy of Canard Metal Box, I went to Britain to study a master's in HR. And yes, I accomplished it. I got my first master's at the age of 50.
Wow.
But while there, I also registered for another master's in in law, which I acquired. I got it at the age of 55.
That is awesome.
I am saying these things because I find a lot of young people who at the age of, in the 30s, they think they are too old to advance their education. And this owes me because at the age of 55, I got my second master's degree. And now at my age, I have really utilized these degrees. And I can tell you the output of this book, which I have recently published, the Decentralization Dialogue in Africa, is as a result of the things I did with those degrees, not only here in Kenya, but also in Zimbabwe when I was a regional senior program officer in charge of promoting and enabling decentralization in Africa.
Wow, that's...
Yes.
You have been around the world.
So that now culminated later on in my being the chairman of the transition authority that midwifed devolution in Kenya. Transition authority, midwifed transition, midwifed devolution in Kenya. I'm also writing about it now. I've done the decentralization which came before this devolution. Now I'm doing the devolution. I'm doing some other 2 books on devolution.
Yeah, before we even get to devolution, you were the town clerk in this town.
Yes.
In Thika.
Yes.
What did you achieve? What are some of the things that you can tell us you achieved in your tenure?
Sometimes it is very difficult to talk about yourself. Sometimes you want others to talk about you.
Yes.
But obviously when I came to this town in 1979, I was the second graduate that had ever been employed. Not had ever been employed, but the people in office, there was only one graduate. I only found one graduate because the first town clerk was a lawyer, Fakwel Kagwe. And Vimba was also, I think, the second town clerk. They were both lawyers. But by the time I came, the lawyer, the town clerk that was there, the deputy, they were not graduates. Neither were any other officer. So only the municipal engineer was Mr. Irongo. So I was the second. And it was very clear to me because I had worked in Mombasa under a commission called the Nyari Commission. It had shown me that capacity was very important because the kind of services that had been offered in the 2 years I worked with the commission, it was, what was here is very remote to what that kind of work, it could not be, that was a commission. And there was very outstanding services being offered by very competent people. Some had been seconded to Mombasa from the national government, then called central government. So I realized that the services being offered here were very, allow me to call them lackadaisical. Because if you look at the kind of cleansing services that were there, if you look at the roads, the old colonial roads, just one on track. So when I came, really, I realized and I recommended to the council, let's employ competent people. You see, we employed engineers, people like Kamano, engineer Kamano, people like engineer Mutombi. We employed people like planning officers like Kamwero. I say Kamwero, he's very famous here. People in Taiga, they were very famous. People like Jonjo in education, in Taiga in housing, Kamwero in planning, Kamano in engineering. Mutombi became now in charge of water and the expansion of the water services. Kamano became in charge of expansion of roads. We got proper management in housing department. Later on we had Kefadhi, D.O. Kefadhi. So we got all these people coming and making their contribution, young, eager, and very energetic young people. And now out of those, I'll tell you one thing. Kenyatta Road, from Garissa Road, all the way to the stadium, it was expanded, made a double kind of not dual, but it was expanded to become a double kind of standard. We used to have a lot of open drains when you are going to the shops down Kuruma Road or anywhere else. You have to jump over open drains, you know. So we closed those drains and we created the modern parking spaces you see. Those didn't exist, but we created them in all the roads as we are expanding, and we put tarmac in those parking spaces. We expanded all the roads. We created roundabouts. Kaman once created a roundabout around the is it Consolidated? It was before Consolidated Bank. And he called it sausage roundabout. That amused everybody as a sausage roundabout. And so in terms of infrastructure, we opened up the estates. Estates didn't have tarmacs. But we said, those people are our people and they are suffering. So we said, if we can do the major roads, let's also do estates. So we put tarmac, those narrow roads of Ofafa and Starehe and all that. We also did roads like Herasarasi. We did roads like the one going to MKU. And definitely the town suddenly became beautiful and lovable. And people are happy to associate with here. We went to Makongeni and we were very strict on planning. That's the time now what you call state and service schemes were going on. And if you're not careful, people can be sneaky. And we had to knock off some houses that were being built without building plans. So people learned to have building plans. That's why we had Kamwero and other planning officers to approve these plans. So house planning became a very important aspect. And therefore, when people say that Makongeni was well planned, it is because we had officers and we had the capacity and we had the will to foster such services. I remember the ministry approached me and said the World Bank is here. They can't find, the African Development Bank is here. They can't find a town which qualifies to have expansion of water. I told them, come to Midwifed. And that afternoon they came. I took them all over and I showed them a plan that was called Alexander Gibbs plan for the whole town. And I can tell you, in 3 months I was in Abidjan negotiating for a water loan. This water that was commissioned in 1983, we negotiated for it in 1979. We were given a huge loan that now gave us enough water to satisfy the Thika of 80s and the future generations. In fact, we were told that capacity of water would last for 50 years. But of course, it lasted only 20 years because the more you made Thika attractive, the more people came to settle there. So I think we got a bigger population and we could not sustain. So the need began to arise hardly after 25 years. But that water was, at that time in 1983, when it was commissioned, supposed to last us for 50 years. But now it lasted us half that time because of the incoming population. The other thing we did, somebody will tell you that this town in the 1980s was very clean. I brought in another officer who was called Odipo. He was the chief public health officer of government. He had just retired and we gave him a contract. Odipo came with very good ideas. He made us buy 8 these rubbish collection vehicles. 8. 4 of them were allocated to Makongeni. 4. The others were allocated to estates like Starehe and others. Right? So those those places suddenly became very clean.
Yes, I can imagine.
Yeah, they suddenly, because nobody was collecting rubbish there. So, but when we got these vehicles in Makongeni, the entire Makongeni has 4 vehicles. This other Starehe and other places have 4 vehicles. Then we had this policy of buying dustbins. Every company had a dustbin, and we enforced that you had to have a dustbin, you know, before the policy was abolished, where people had to provide their own dustbins. We were buying dustbins every year and making sure they are there. So there is no putting dustbin on the ground. You have to put it, otherwise we prosecute you. So the town became very clean. Odipo designed another method whereby you don't clean the town during the day. You clean from 7 o'clock to midnight. So when you wake up in the morning, the town is superb, clean. I think that system is still continuing. You see, so we made this town very, very, very competitively clean and very good. You see, so we have water, roads have been expanded and extended. Not only expanded, but also extended. Gullies or open drains covered. And let me give you one result of doing that. And it's very shocking. The whole area where you have this Madai, up to the mosque, that whole area, those shops, in the 2 streets, where you have Wangari Garden and the one in Gatumaini at the back, those shops were all closed when I came. Not a single one was operating in 1979. But when we did the roads and whatever, they started opening one by one. And within a short time, we could hear there are some veterinary officers who have settled there. There are some furniture shops. And suddenly then, after probably 3 years, you couldn't get a shop. It was
full.
Even today, it's full. So we opened up a very important section of business area in Thika. So then the other thing is we started building schools like Karibaribi, like Queen of Rosary, like Yandutu. They were not there. So we started now every year planning and giving 200,000. 200,000 was a lot of money. We could give those schools 200,000 every year, so that classes were being built increasingly. So that was it was the responsibility of the parents to build the classrooms, but we give them the support. So when you give them 200,000, they hold Haram based and they build classes, and we got new schools. We also expanded other schools like St. Patrick's and others, wherever we could. So suddenly it became very, very good. And as a way of improving the education, because Thika as an education authority featured nowhere in Kenya, because people are being rated, but people are saying, where is Thika? Some municipal it is an education authority. Now with the Jonjo here, Jonjo came with the reforms in the schools. One, he identified very competent headmasters and posted them to schools. Number 2, he recommended that we employ secretaries in schools. We did a massive recruitment of secretaries in 1983, messengers. We gave them watchmen, and generally supported them in payment of electricity and other things, so that the schools were no longer struggling in one way or the other. And it became very prestigious even to go to municipal schools. Yes, so they suddenly became nice places, you know. There was Mogomoini, Tomaini, you know, all of them, St. Patrick's, you know, they became good schools.
And I believe that is when Thika used to top.
It came from nowhere to number 3 in the Republic.
In the Republic,
In
Thika.
the Republic.
Yes.
Yes, from nothingness to number 3 in the Republic. That was the best we held. Yes, we were number 3 in the whole of the Republic. And I was still there. It was just amazing. So I don't know what I can tell you, but my life in the municipality was one of joy, because I was a young man. I was employed as a town clerk at the age of 29. I didn't even have a wife. But the councillors supported me for those 10 years I was here. They supported me. They believed in me. They listened to me. And Me, I was acting in hindsight of what I had learned in Mombasa under a commission. So, and I was also associating a lot with Nairobi. Nairobi was also at one stage under a commission. So I was bringing the best I could to the council. And then the revenue collection. We really brought revenue collection from probably 300 million to 800 million because of now forecast revenue collection, you know. So this money we also now planned for. It was our money, and we could plan to give the services. But one of the most dramatic things that happened is in 1982, the councillors decided to allocate the stadium as a public land, to subdivide it and allocate it. And they identified a piece of land opposite the KVM as where we would build a stadium. And clandestinely, with my officers, I planned to thwart that plan. So what I did, I planned in 1983, I had money which I had planned to put a stone wall because it was all fenced with bamboo. So when the councillors went on recess after pending the elections of 1984, I quickly put up a wall on one side. So when they came the following year, I told them, now this is what, to the new councillors and the old ones, this is what we have decided to do. So they had no choice because people knew now we are renewing that stadium, and they could not say that we bomb the wall.
So that is how you got to
so
save the
they started now supporting me every year because it was not a capital project. Every year we planned for one wall. So there are 4 walls, right? So 4 years I planned, and it was covered with, not with bamboo now, but with stone. The stones that you see now.
Yes.
It's a stone wall now.
Yes.
The 5th year I planned for the stand, the grand stand. That's what I did for the 5th year. And that was my gift to Thika before I left for Nyeri, because already I had completed the stadium. So when I look at that stadium, I'm very proud because I saved it from being grabbed as being grabbed. The story of Thika and the landscape of Thika would be different without that stadium. I don't know what it would be, but I thwarted it and I managed. It needed a lot of courage. Mind you, I was in my 30s, and I did these things when I was in my 30s. It really, really needed a lot of courage.
Wow.
So these are, I don't know, you asked me to tell you about the story of Thika, but it is that much and a lot more. Then the World Bank came and it sponsored phase 3. I don't know whether you know phase 3 as Urban 3. That's where now we opened up. There's something you've called, I started seeing what you call Towns Pro, where you have just the same kind of buildings. If it is phase 10, they look a certain way. If it is phase 9, they look in a certain way, as planned by the National Housing Corporation. Then I told the council, no, we must renew the face of Thika. Let us have a free fall. Let us have a free, let everybody plan their building the way they want, as long as it is decent. Phase 13 was the first to come up. It's not a bad place. It's a beautiful place because you have high-rise buildings and so forth. So people got the queue. And that's how we started having high-rise buildings, nice buildings in Thika, nice homes. Otherwise, Kimathi was the best. Phase, what do you call it, Kamenu. These were the best estates. And Ziwani, they were the best. There was the people, big people, DOs and everybody. And the engineers were fighting for those. But now, they got a chance to build their own. That's how you have all this. Kiboko came. I even built Kiboko. Now looking very different. Of course, there was Bendo and Section 9 before that. But we opened up a new idea, a new thinking. And that's where Goingwa, you find Goingwa, you have Happy Valley. which is called landless. And that's what brought modern Thika into existence. Yes. We had this, if you went to the market, when I came in 75, there used to be this where people build with some rough wood and putting sacks inside, small things. This one we be moored, and we did build the big, the big, what do you call it?
Modern ones.
The modern big market inside. The modern building, which occupies a lot of place and whatever. That's when we built it through the World Bank. Yes.
Awesome.
So we modernized the Jamhuri market. We allowed for some stalls to be built, modern ones, and all those. So we have been in a process of modernizing this town. And I think the queue, others took the queue after I left. And it has continued like that. So the modern Thika you found is not what was there in 1975 when I came here as a legal officer. Yes, this is a very new town and a very different town. Tarmac was a luxury, but now tarmac is a necessity, and you get it in plenty.
It is so good to talk to you and see you beaming with joy when you remember the milestones and the things you've done for this wonderful town.
That's why I decided to settle in Thika. And I settled in one of the estates which I helped to initiate, Kiboko Estate. And it has remained my home for the last 30 or so years.
Awesome. Now, you are a man of many fasts.
Yes.
And talking about devolution, you are, so to speak, the father of devolution.
Yes.
Please tell us more about that.
I am not the father of devolution, right? There are many fathers of devolution. If you go to Yashpal Guy, the one who initiated this constitution, he will say he's his father. If you go to Leti Gitonga, who built it, he will say he's the father. Maybe if you go to others, if you go to politicians, Kibaki will say he's the father because he's the one who initiated the implementation of the constitution. If you come to Uhuru, he's the one who was charged with actual implementation of the constitution. You can say he's the father. If you come to Raila Odinga, he will say I'm the one who agitated for devolution. So he will say he's the father. So we really must do a DNA, a proper DNA, to find out who is the father of devolution. But there is only one person who did something that is different from all others, and that is Kinuthia Wamwangi, because I midwifed the devolution. I interpreted what others had built into a reality. That's called midwifing devolution. So I call myself the midwife. I look at the baby, doing very well. I look at the mother, doing very well. So mother and baby are doing well up to now when I'm talking to you.
Yes.
And I'm talking as the midwife. Yes.
Now, devolution was meant to bring services closer to the people, or that is what the layman understood. But we are probably not feeling it that much.
That is also what the law says. The law took out all the functions of national government. You know, when it was central government, it did everything. So they looked at those functions that are service-based, like health, social services, sports, things like that, and devolved those to the counties. The national government was left with those policies, with those things that have to do with policy and guidance. I'm glad when you say you don't feel it. You are not rude, but I think those who say that are rude. Because if you look at the totality of what has happened since the time we implemented devolution, I've always said that people in central Kenya, in particular Mount Kenya, and more particularly the former central province, are the people who talk like the way you talk. Because always they got a lot of resources and were able to do a lot of things. Have you ever been imagined of the 87% marginalized areas like Garissa? I don't know, some of these were here. They used to run a budget of, I don't know, 5 million, you know, because they have no revenue.
Yeah.
Government was not giving them grants. A county is running 5 million, of course, those days were a lot. And suddenly, the devolution recognized them as marginalized, and they are given 10 billion. Can you imagine a county? Even let's say they had 50 million, and now they are given 10 billion. The first year they were just shell-shocked. They didn't know what to do with that money because they needed all the services to be done. But forget about them, because now you know they have done roads, they have done health facilities and everything. I want you to imagine one thing even here. The number of Maram roads that have been made in Kiambu. Maram. You know, we used to say Maram, but today they stone them. They put stones and make them concrete. The number of, I don't know, in every part of Kiambu, where would you sleep overnight on a road right now? Where? Tell me one place, maybe Nyandarua, but here, because we see photograph of Nyandarua, but in Kiambu, I don't think there is one place you can just drive because it has rained and you are not able to reach your home. But you know also many of them have been tarmacked. Urban areas have been tarmacked. But because you are used to getting tarmac, like the way I brought tarmac to Thika and all that, to you tarmac is not new. But you are failing to understand that the spread and the reach out of tarmac has increased in phenomenal kilometers in Kiambu. You are failing to understand that we had only one level 5 hospital, Thika Municipal Hospital. And now we have 2. And I think they are planning even to have the 3rd one in Kiambu, right? In the whole of the Republic, there were only 13 level 5 hospitals. This included the 7 provincial hospitals and 5 municipal hospitals. I think Kiambu was one, Machakos was another, 5 others. They were all 13. In 1979, no, not 70, sorry. In, I think we came into existence in 2012. So 2011, His Excellency Anyang' Nyong'o then was a minister, and he gazetted the 13 as national government, right? National government. He gazetted them. This was to preclude them from being gazetted as county health facilities. But when I came now to gazette, I had gazetted them as national hospitals, and I made them county hospitals as level 5 hospitals. So you can imagine when we started in 2013, August, we had 13 level 5 hospitals. Today, we don't have 47, we have 60 something, because some counties have 2 level 5 hospitals. Nyeri has now a level 2 hospital. I think it has also a level 6. But the level 6 one is a national government one. But Kiambu has 2. There are many others which have 2, level 5. So from 13 to 60 something, level 5. How do you think this country was able to cope with COVID and COVID whatever? If you count the number of health level 3 health centers, that even Thika here you can see, even Kiandutu has one. You see, Makongeni has one.
Yes.
We didn't have. They have been built all over the place. You take them for granted because you came the other day and you found them there. But they were built. They were not there when I was there. There was no health center in Makongeni. There was no health center in Kiandutu. But it was built through devolution. You see, other counties. I went to Baringo. And they said the nearest health center you can reach to be treated is 400 kilometers away from the people in the hinterland. And the governor told me I'll push these health centers until I reach, before I end my term, until I reach 100. So people now can only travel 100 kilometers to reach a health center. Now I believe as I'm talking to you, they go less than 50 kilometers. They started putting those bandas in marginalized areas, nearest to where people are, to provide maternity facilities, to provide first aid facilities. So health has reached people and has gone to the people to the nearest possible point. But people still take these things for granted. And a person like me, I can only feel angry because I know how I found the hospitals. They are clean. If you go to hospitals, they are now clean. I visited a lot of hospitals. They were neglected. They were dirty. But now go, you'll find that people care. They have made these things. So after this interview, tour your own county and ask, was this there before devolution? Was this there? And you'll find out. You'll be told about all. But people still say, we don't. But people in the marginalized areas are the people who know that devolution came to help them because they didn't have these facilities. Right? You are used. People in Central Kenya were used to these things. Right? Urban areas, Nakuru and other places, Eldoret, they were used. But mind you, Eldoret could not cope with, like Moi Referral Hospital could not cope with people who needed their services. Because all the Turkana places, all those places, they were coming to Eldoret through the Moi Hospital. Now Turkana, you go there. You go to Pokot. They have their own level 5. They don't need to come to Moi. And that's very important referrals. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Now, talking about devolution.
Yes.
You have authored a book.
Yes.
The Decentralization Dialogue in Africa.
Yes.
A precursor to devolution in Kenya.
Yes.
Please tell us about this book.
Now, this book goes back to my work in Zimbabwe. When I told you I went and, of course, I'm holding it like my child now, because I love it. When I went for that degree and in Britain, I encountered a scenario that was very interesting, because around that time when I went in 1999, it's when this decentralization dialogue, decentralization knowledge started in 1980 with Margaret Thatcher and with Margaret Thatcher, and she started something called the Next Steps, and Reagan then, and he started something called Pushing Back the State. That meant devolving or removing services from the central authority to delegated authorities down there. But the concept had to be developed. So when I went in 1999, we had 3 professors, one from my own University of Manchester, and another in the University of London, and another university. We were trying to write the first book on decentralization. And for us, they were trying to get information from people from what you call the third world, the Africa, China. What are you doing with this kind of thing? So that's how I got involved. And I got so interested in the dialogue with my lecturer that I told them, now, although I'm doing a HR subject, let me attempt a thesis on performance management of local authorities. So they allowed me to do a thesis on performance management, the next agenda for local authorities in Kenya. And the University of Manchester paid my ticket to come to Kenya to do my research here on the subject. So that's the subject I wrote about. So when I left, when I finished and I came to Kenya, I was actually headhunted by an organization in Zimbabwe called the Municipal Development Partnership for Eastern and Southern Africa. It was a department of the World Bank which had been cut into two, one for Western and Central Africa and one for Eastern and Southern Africa, to come and actually enable and promote decentralization in Africa. So that this is the one that will bring democracy. It will remove organizations from military regimes, one-party states. You know, it was meant to fight those one-party rules and military regimes. So you can imagine me, I went to all the countries of Eastern and Southern Africa, preaching decentralization and interacting with the governments of Eastern and Southern Africa, and occasionally even Western Africa, with the support of the World Bank, with the support of other governments in Europe and so forth. So by the time I was through 5 years, really this thing was very strong in Africa. One, in 1994, we got, I think South Africa got independence, and their structure of government was based on decentralization. But you had 3 tiers: semi-independent regional authorities, semi-independent municipalities, and the national government. Then you had Namibia; it had its own centralized state, and so forth and so forth. So Tanzania, Uganda was very strong. Tanzania was very strong. Even Rwanda became very strong. A bit of it in Burundi. So it's only a place like Kenya where this Kanu thing was still a very strong idea, and we had a very centralized state. And I was feeling desperate there because we were not talking the language of decentralization. But I asked the World Bank to sponsor a conference here, which was attended by our minister here, the ministers of Eastern and Central Africa, to come and talk about their experiences. I've written it in the book here, you see. So when we came and Karisa Maitha had these things, and Mudi Awori and so forth, most of these conferences you are supposed to listen and you go and take them to the cabinet. Yeah. So it was a good thing. And soon after, as this constitutional dialogue was going on, it became a dialogue within the constitution. And people introduced not decentralization but devolution. Oh. Because there are some people who knew it as a concept, but they didn't know where to take it. But when we got the bombers and so forth, this became a subject matter, a strong one. And that's how devolution came now. And devolution is stronger than decentralization. Because decentralization can mean delegated authorities, like the ones we had, the local authorities of Yo, the ones I led, that was part of decentralization. It can be deconcentration, this system of having a PC, a DC, a DO, a chief, that is a form of decentralization, because you are delegating your powers to authorities down there, but they are accountable to you. You delegate authority to a local government, but it's accountable, subject to the minister's approval. There is no important decision you could pass in a local authority without saying subject to the minister's approval. Sure. Or you could have what you call privatization or marketization, like the Kenya Airways was the first, where you have a government, a fully government funded organization being floated, and Kenya Commercial Bank, for private persons to buy shares. You see, that is privatization. It's part of decentralization because you are removing the central control of that bank or Kenya Airways and putting it also in the hands of independent persons. That's a form of decentralization. So eventually, Kenya opted for devolution. Devolution means literally coming with a knife and cutting functions. You cut literally, and you say, now you remain with this part of the hand, you go with this part of the hand. And when it goes, you have no control over it. It's called absolute. Devolution is absolute, which means the functions that we took to the counties only belong to the counties, and only the people of that county can say how they are going to be managed with their governor. That's why the governor is the chief executive of a county. And that's why you also have an assembly. You have a county assembly which passes laws that are binding, like laws of parliament. They are binding. So that's why now, even when you're given money, 9 billion, you give it whole to the county, the budget. That budget, instead of it going now to the minister for local government to approve, it goes to the county assembly. Once the county assembly has approved that budget, it goes to the governor, who now plays the role of the president and signs it as binding. If you make a law in the county assembly, it goes to the governor and signs that law. Once the governor has signed, it is obligatory. It is implemented as a law of that county. That's devolution. The powers that were given to the counties are absolutely given, and the national government has no powers over it. Therefore, the office of the president cannot take a letter and instruct a governor that we instruct you to do this and this. They cannot. They have no power to instruct governors to do anything, because the governors are the ones now who rule their counties by their own mechanisms of the assembly, the people, because people are a factor. You cannot do anything as a governor. You have seen it here in Kiambu, where Governor Kabogo was taken to court because a budget did not have public participation, and it was annulled. So the people are a factor. The assembly is a factor in a county. So whatever the people and the assembly and the executive agree, that becomes binding to you. Nobody else can tell you how to do it. Turkana will do it in their own way. Marsabit will do it in their own way. Here we shall do it. But the systems are uniform. You can't go outside those uniforms. That's devolution.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, this book, where is it available for sale? Where can people buy it?
By the last count, because the book doesn't belong to me now, it belongs to the publisher.
The publisher, yes. I can see the Jomo Kenyatta Foundation.
Jomo Kenyatta Foundation.
Yes.
They have a shop, Jomo Kenyatta Foundation shop at Kijabi Street.
Okay.
And there's also a textbook center. I'm suspecting all centers of textbook, including the one in Thika, it will be available. The book is called The Decentralization Dialogue in Africa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Decentralization Dialogue in Africa. It's very intense, very, very, very intense, but it tells you everything. It tells you about the dialogue from the Victoria Falls Conference of Ministers in 1969 to date. What has been going on, including AfriCities. AfriCities is part of the dialogue, because most of the subjects that are discussed in AfriCities, like the one that was in Kisumu, have got something to do with the African local government. Yes.
Awesome. That is great.
Yes.
We would sit here and talk for hours on end. There's a lot you can tell us.
Yes.
But we are grateful for the time you've spared to have this conversation with us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm honored, and even to be given this opportunity to articulate some of these things. You can see I'm very emotional.
Yes.
About them, because I believe in them, and I believe in nothing else other than what I believe in. So I believe in devolution absolutely. Yes, and I think I'm the leading defender of devolution. Only I don't have arms to fight with anybody, but I'm defending it through knowledge, dissemination, and recording, because I don't want anybody to distort the intentions and the philosophy of devolution. That's why I'm now documenting. That's why I'm writing. I'm going to write 2 other books on devolution now, the midwifing itself, and also trying to explain to people now within the Kenyan context, what does devolution mean? The different concepts of devolution. I'm going to explain that. Then the process we underwent in those are the 2 books I want to write. But there is also another book I have written, which is now already, it's only being now reviewed by experts. It is called The Marriage Crisis in 21st Century.
Okay.
So people will ask, what has marriage crisis to do with devolution or what I do? I'm an elder. You've seen or seen installed as an elder of the Jambayaro already by the Council of Elders. So I'm concerned about the society. I'm concerned about the morals and about the cultures of our society. So I'm interrogating where we are in our livelihoods. That's why I'm talking about the marriage crisis, because you may not agree with me, but there is an entire crisis because homes are threatened. You heard the president saying that about 48% of families in Kenya are single family households. And there's a disconnect and a dysfunction where you have a single family. Whether it is the man who is leading this family or it's the woman leading this family, it's not the same like when you would have a man and a woman leading a family, because both of them contribute different factors, different things to a child. Yes.
When that book is published, we'll also talk about it,
Yes,
so that we can delve more into it.
Yes. It's about to be published together by the same publisher.
Okay. Sawa. Thanks a lot.
Thank you a lot. Thank you for coming.
Yes.
And it's a privilege to be interviewed by you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Kinuthia Wamwangi, who has a wealth of knowledge in matters leadership, development, and lately he has authored a book. I have been your host, Juliet Modani. I hope you have been able to learn a thing or two. And if you haven't subscribed, kindly do so. Until next time, take care.